Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another exciting MoonBlink webinar. My name is Travis Hawthorne, and I am MoonBlink's Marketing Coordinator. Today, we'll be introducing you to how Proxim Wireless and MoonBlink Communications can assist you in your video surveillance application. On the line, we have Dennis Huang, Proxim's Director of Marketing, who will be demonstrating how Proxim's products are a perfect fit for a wireless video surveillance application. MoonBlink has a very close relationship with Proxim and has been a top distributor for them for the last 4 years. So we're excited to do this webinar with them and help educate everybody in attendance on how Proxim fits into your video surveillance project. Now, before I pass it on to Dennis, I just want to take a moment to go over who MoonBlink is. We are a value-added distributor for wireless and video surveillance equipment, and as I mentioned before, we work very closely with Proxim. We call ourselves a value-added distributor because our partner development team is extremely knowledgeable and experienced in wireless and video surveillance. We can assist our customers in product recommendations, system design. We can get assistance from our in-house engineers for different projects. And we can also provide marketing and sales support. So instead of just taking orders, we can help you develop and grow your own business. And in addition to being a Proxim distributor, we can provide many different video surveillance equipment, including cameras from Axis and IQ and Vision. And we've also recently launched a cloud-based video surveillance solution that our resellers can resell as their own hosted video service. Now I'm going to let Dennis continue on with the remainder of the presentation. If anybody has any questions throughout the webinar, you can please just type them into the chat box towards the right of your screen, and we'll make sure to provide time at the end to answer those. So with that, Dennis, I'll let you begin.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks for the great introduction. Welcome, everyone, to the sort of introductions, the sort of Proxim Wireless Video Surveillance Network presentation webinar. Just want to tee up that saying that MoonBlink is a terrific partner of ours. We've been working together for a number of years, and so we really appreciate MoonBlink giving us the opportunity to actually speak to all of you. So before I begin, I guess, with the presentation, I'd like to sort of talk a little bit about who Proxim is, and then if there are questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and submit your questions via the chat window. I'll try my best to kind of cover those as we go along with the presentation. There'll be a section at the end where we do Q&A, and we can touch on in more detail some of the questions that maybe I missed during the presentation. So, introduction, Proxim. Proxim's been a leader sort of in the wireless space for a number of years. We're an early pioneer in the sort of Wi-Fi, broadband wireless access, and wireless backhaul space, and we continue to be an innovator in the sort of wireless sort of infrastructure ecosystem. We provide wireless solutions for many different types of customers, from government entities to service providers to enterprises of all types and sizes, deploying fixed, mobile, security, and video surveillance solutions, whether that be indoor or outdoors. Most of our deployments are really outdoor focused, but we do have also indoor wireless equipment that we provide as well. Again, we've been in business for many, many years, 250,000 customers, over 2.5 million units deployed. We have deployments on all continents in the world, with 65 countries worldwide. So quite a lot of referenceable customers that we can point to. And anytime that you have more questions about maybe case studies or customer wins that we have, I welcome you to sort of go to the Proxim.com website and check out not only the product sections that we have there, but also the solution sections that we have there. We have a nicely laid out solution section that points to many of the different types of case studies or customer wins that we have, and then some of the deployments therein. So we'll cover many of those related to video surveillance during this presentation, during the rest of the presentation. So some of the things that our products require us to perform related to how video applications are needed by our customers. So In terms of video-supported applications, we have red light running. It's a matter of basically being able to track intersections, whether there are illegal red light runs in those intersections. We have license plate recognitions. These are some of the applications from for video surveillance point of view that are typical in terms of the deployments that we get involved in. Backhaul traffic cameras, many different cameras. You need to backhaul the video feed, so that's very important. Provide mobile video connectivity, trains, buses, and police. One differentiating factor is whether the equipment that you're deploying can only be stationary or whether you can actually deploy a sort of mobile video surveillance network. And so that's an important distinction. And then traffic management centers, how do you actually backhaul all those video feeds back into some sort of centralized management center? And then there are auxiliary applications such as CCTV, camera backhaul, and public Wi-Fi access. All these things are related to sort of video support that we come across on a very routine basis. So one of the case studies that we're going to talk about is basically the Indiana Department of Transportation. The NDOT has a variety of applications, some of which we just mentioned in the presentation, in the slide previously. And many of these applications would be very difficult to implement if it was a wired solution. It's going to be very difficult as well as costly, time-wise and dollar-wise, budget-wise, to really provide this level of applications to some of the locations that they require, right? And so wireless really ends up being the de facto sort of technology of choice for these types of applications. And so with that, the requirements here, it was basically wireless traffic cameras and ITS cabinets being wired up. We had some dynamic message signs, DMS signs, that also had to be connected, traffic detection and radar sites, remote sites, wireless access. All of these are various different applications that they wanted to accomplish with their wireless infrastructure. And so we have, some highlights of what the equipment was underneath these applications that were deployed from the Proxim product portfolio that addresses some of those needs. The full duplex backhaul, that was accomplished by deploying our FDD GX200, the Tsunami GX90s, the traffic cameras and ITS cabinets. They were wired up via our Tsunami MP5054 series. We had dynamic signage. Some of the capacity requirements are a little bit high, and then some of the capacity requirements are a little bit lower. And so that basically defines the type of product that you would look to Proxim on for servicing some of these applications. And so this is a good example of a pretty large installation that required a bunch of different types of applications within sort of a use case for video, and all of the back-end networking infrastructure was constructed out of wireless equipment that was provided by Proxim. So on to mobile video. So we talked a little bit about a stationary deployment. This is a deployment that was a mobile deployment. And so, and there are other examples such as this, but this is one that we highlight at Proxim. The requirement was basically to provide ubiquitous CCTV coverage at speeds up to potentially 100 kilometers along, 80 kilometers of track, light rail track that goes and winds throughout cities as well as through tunnels. And so the deployment was actually rather difficult, given that, obviously you don't, within this particular deployment, most of the track deployments were really not linear. They weren't very rigid or very straight. They were windy, they were curvy, they were up, they were down. This is the Canary Islands off the coast of Spain, which is where this deployment is, the Tenerife, Spain deployment. And so, and there were also sort of installs that had to be done and constructed inside tunnels themselves, and so wirelessly constructing one of these networks would have been, very difficult to be accomplished with really any other type of infrastructure without, without the equipment and technology that we provide. And so, the city itself utilized our Tsunami MP11 and a sort of 50-54 base stations that were deployed along the tracks, and there were multiple SUs or subscribers that were essentially deployed within the trains themselves. That was basically connected to the sort of cameras that sat in the corners of all of these train stations and tram cars. And there's actually a pretty good example of what the actual deployment physically looks like if you go to the Proxim.com website. We've got a video running of the actual deployment for this particular Tenerife installation that is running on our website. So you can take a look at, what was actually being recorded via the sort of cameras that were being deployed, the video surveillance cameras that were deployed on the tram cars, and then how were these video feeds being relayed back into a sort of centralized networking monitoring location for the city of Tenerife. And so for the location in Tenerife. And so this is a pretty successful deployment, and it demonstrates a couple of things. One, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to really do this without wireless technology. Two, not only do you need to have wireless technology that can provide you with an optimized sort of video solution link via sort of the QoS and SLA prioritization that we incorporate within the Proxim gear, but you also need to enable the mobility aspect of the equipment. If all you have is a wireless but stationary technology, you really can't do provide services for tram cars and moving vehicles. And so this is one of those examples. So on to the next, Los Angeles County. This is a pretty large deployment for us. We're talking about what I recall 30 some, almost 40 different incorporated cities within the county of Los Angeles, and a broader county of Los Angeles. They're covering really about 4,000 square miles. Population of almost 10 million people, and there were up to really 5,000, signaled intersections and more than 500 cameras, and this particular network actually continues to grow, and it's going to be growing sort of to 1,000 sort of locations where these cameras have to be installed, and the wireless network needs to be intersected with many of the signals. Traffic signals that are lined out throughout these counties and these cities. And so, the primary use case for this particular deployment was to manage or provide better management of the traffic light, sort of light synchronization, right? Traffic light synchronization, the manage of basically congestion and traffic congestion within the county of Los Angeles. And so, a very important issue that obviously they address. And so traversing of surface streets, the average 30 minutes for residents of the county in terms of traffic, commute times, anything that basically helps streamline the how the traffic lights are synchronized, monitoring basically congestion or traffic congestion throughout the deployments. All of this is going to be all of these were applications that were necessary and had to be addressed with this particular deployment. So these are one of these very large installations, a very high-profile install, and a very large network. And there were a lot of different types of technologies that the LA County and sort of the Department of Public Works really investigated for this particular deployment before adopting the Proxim sort of warp-based point-to-multipoint, point-to-point type of technology. some of which are related to mesh. There were other types of vendors that were involved in this particular deployment initially as a pilot just to understand whether this would work or not. But because of the latency requirements that they have, of the scale and size of the actual network itself, it became very evident that, you know, without a very robust sort of wireless networking equipment that enabled them to hand tailor or hand tune each particular connections from base station to subscriber unit, base station to, you know, a client, this wasn't going to happen in the context that they needed. And so because of this, and the evaluation that was done, this is one of the installations or deployments that we highlight at Proxim.